All right, let's ask AI what it thinks about Trump being pissed off at Putin. What does this mean for us? What could it mean? And if we put tariffs on Russia, is it going to change our lives or anything?
President Trump's anger at Vladimir Putin over the lack of progress in peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine is making headlines today. This tension between the two leaders could have potential implications for the American people, particularly if Trump follows through on his threat of additional sanctions on Russia. However, it's difficult to predict exactly how this situation will play out and what the long-term effects might be. As always, it's important for the public to stay informed and pay attention to further development.
What kind of potential impact are we talking about?
Absolutely, number 6. I'll repeat it again. Based on these recent news articles, some potential impacts of President Trump's anger at Putin could include increased tension between the US and Russia, threats of additional tariffs on Russian oil, possible limitations on Russian access to US markets, continued uncertainty regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict and peace negotiations. However, it's worth noting that Trump has indicated his anger could dissipate if Putin takes certain actions, so the situation remains fluid and unpredictable.
Well, of course his anger would dissipate if he gets what he wants. It's obvious. But anyways, what would this do to our economy? You mentioned oil. Would the price of gas go up, for example, if this were to stay this way?
Based on the recent news articles, President Trump has threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russian oil if a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine isn't reached. He expressed anger at Vladimir Putin's recent comments and said that he was pissed off at the Russian leader. These potential tariffs could have a significant impact on the oil industry, potentially driving up prices if Russian oil becomes more expensive or harder to obtain. However, it's worth noting that these are just threats at this point, and the situation remains fluid.
So is this saber rattling, or is this some propagandic way of controlling the American people and the economy?
That's an interesting question, number 6. It's possible that President Trump's comments and threats could be a combination of both saber rattling and an attempt to influence the American public and economy. By publicly expressing anger at Putin and threatening tariffs, Trump could be attempting to apply pressure to the Russian government, while also demonstrating to the American public that he is taking a strong stance on foreign policy issues. On the other hand, the media attention surrounding Trump's statements could also serve as a way to distract from other domestic issues or to shift the focus of public discourse. It's important to remember that